Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get busy. First thing we're going to go ahead and do, we're going to create our networking service and we're going to test it to make sure that we're returning something from the API call. Now, one thing that we want to do is, and a lot of people, this is a debate for another day because this topic isn't something that we're going to go in depth with because we have enough to cover. But in this situation, we're going to make this a final class, networking service. But of course, there are problems with making this a final class, especially when you do a singleton pattern. And so let me explain the reason why this network service is a singleton and what a singleton is, right? A singleton is nothing but an object that's there's only one instance of it. You can't create any new instances of it. Every time you invoke it, you're accessing that same instance, and it serves one purpose, is that if you do a big say you have a function that uses a lot of resources, we aren't opening, creating that object, and then going back and creating another object that uses even more, uses the same amount of resources. So now you have like double or triple the memory consumed, right? So if you want to do an expensive networking work, you want to reference that same I guess you want to reference that same instance all the time instead of bringing in more resources, right? Another thing though is that a problem with the singleton. Well, let me just go. Another good thing about using the singleton also is if, for example, you create authentication, you log in, and you talk to a backend or whatever, and it says whether you've logged in or not, right? And all that information associated with that login is still in that session, or not in that session, but it's still in that object, right? So everything associated with you is still in that object. You don't have to recreate or go back. You don't have to pass any data from view controller or view model to view model. All you have to do is access that same object. So these are the good things about singleton. A bad thing about singleton is difficulty in mocking data and testing, unit testing. That again is a whole nother issue, and we can get to that on another day. Okay, so give me a second. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna say, Jesus Christ, I don't know why that happened. Final class networking service. Okay, that means that this can't be another class cannot inherit from this. The reason why we make it so that another class couldn't inherit from it is just for the safety. We don't want other developers coming behind us and kind of doing certain things. So that's the reason why we use access modifiers and final classes, so that certain things can't happen, certain methods can't be used outside of a class, and certain classes, in this case, this networking service, cannot be inherited from. Okay, so And of course, static lets networking class, networking service. Okay, so this is what you call a singleton. You have a class, then you have a static variable that references the class. And then the last thing to ensure, you have to do private init. So this is your initializer. You say private init, and you use a class for a singleton too. Why? Because you don't want to anyone else have the opportunity to access your initializer, right? So basically, accessing your initializer is like this. Let's just do this hypothetically, right? Var service, right? Equals networking service. Now you notice that if I try to do this, I'm going to get an error, right? It's not accessible. And that's what a singleton does. It doesn't allow the initializer to be accessible, right? But you can dot shared, and then you can access methods and properties within your singleton. That makes sense. If that doesn't make sense, then hang on, because you're going to see an example of it today. Okay, so now we have a function called fetch API response public func fetch API API response. Right? Jesus Christ. Okay, and in this response is a URL. Okay, I'm getting kind of stupid with the fact that I cannot seem to quit doing typos. Ugh. Completion at escaping. Oh, and by the way, before I even go further, let me. Sorry about that. Before I go any further, I'm going to explain that in this example, we're going to use closures. In examples in the future, I'm going to show you how to use combine and futures and promises. You know, that's another way, a lightweight way of accessing API responses and avoiding the problem of uh, strong references, which I know that I've talked about, but we're going to talk about it a little bit here. And we're going to deal with strong references and make them weak and show you how to do that properly. Okay, now back to the escaping closure. An escaping closure is not just a regular closure. An escaping closure is a closure that lasts lasts the lifetime of your request and response, which means usually when you do a function, you call the function and it happens like that, right? You call this function. Okay, so if this isn't an escaping closure, right? If it's not an escaping closure, it's just a regular closure or a regular function, what happens is, and you're returning an int, you know, we just say return 5. Okay. What happens is, as the object, you know, the order of operations goes from top to bottom. And just say this takes 10 seconds, right? This takes 10 seconds to send the response and come back. Guess what? The progress has kept going. You know, the object or the controller is continued to work down. By the time this comes back, it means nothing. It's too late, right? Um, and escaping closure makes this last as long as it has to, or as long as the request and response takes. So the progress stops here until your response has returned. Hopefully that makes sense. So again, this doesn't work with a regular closure. It doesn't work with returning, right? You must return nothing. Return what you return must be void. Means it doesn't return anything. You know, the value comes from the closure. Okay. Okay. At escaping results data response error. Right. Now I'm here. I can even, this is the same as void. It's the same thing. I can put void or put this. I can say, or right, doesn't matter. It's a habit. I prefer this. Doesn't return anything. So now, and let me explain your result type. So a result type is usually when you have an escape enclosure, the result type, this is the type created in Swift, but then data is a type, and response error is one of our custom errors. Where is my, yeah, there we go, response error. Or I can just go to the definition, right? There we go, response error, right? Type error. And these are our response errors, and right here. So this is the type of error that we're going to need to return. How do we return it? I'm going to show you. So I'm right here, and now what we need to do is go ahead and get the task. Let task equal URL session, not data task, session, URL session dot share dot data task, okay, with the completion handler. Yes, that's it right there. And this is, of course, is a URL. This should not be a URL request. Hold on. Okay, so hold on. Let me no, that's wrong. Okay. So what you don't want, data task, not with your data task, with URL request with RL. Let me see if this throws in here. Hold on. Sorry about that. Right. Something data response. So yeah, you fill in names, right? With the types, okay? And this is error type. Error. Okay. Get rid of this. Let me okay, the bill succeeded. All right. Yeah, I thought I was gonna get an error because this said URL request, but no, okay, URL. Okay, all right, never mind. So yeah, so this inside of this is where you're gonna get your your data back, right? So now this cannot work unless you say task dot resume. Okay. Now that we've done that, we can go ahead and say we can see if we have any data, right? Make sure that we have actually returned data from here. Guard that's data equal data else, right? Else return, and we're gonna say completion. Stop, Jesus. Oh, completion dot failure dot no data. That's how we do that right there. Guards, see, value data was defined but never used. We're going to use it. Get off. Okay, so now we're going to say, we're going to test our HTTP response code, right? We want it to be between 200 and 300. So we're going to say guard, let's response equal response as HTTP as HTTP URL response. Okay. And then we're going to say, we're also going to test that 200, 300 is the scope for which we want our response code, our status code. Response dot status code. Okay. Else return, right? And of course, right, completion. This is failed. This failed, right? If we're here. Dot bad status code. Okay. There we go. So if any of these get tripped up, we have a bad status code. We have no data, or the other one, we have a bad status code. So and then we're just gonna test for any type of error. If there's an error, right? If there's an error, we're gonna say guard say error equals nil. Else return completion dot failure dot bad response. Okay, so now we're going to say, after all that is done, our thing is successful. Dot success data. Now data is used. This should go away. Yep, and it does. Now we have no warnings and no errors, but we are not sure that this works. How are we to get sure that it works before we go further? Simple. We're just going to run a simple test, right? We're going to say networking service dot share dot fetch API response URL. Yeah, we can do this. Check this out. Peep, check this out. Wrong one. Or better yet, I don't know why I'm doing it like this. I should say this. Postman, right? That's where we're supposed to be at. Okay, no, stop. Oh my God. Here we go. Check this out. This should return. So we do this, and there is a response, right? So we're going to copy this, Command C, copy this, and URL string, right? And there we have this, right? Now we go here, okay? We're going to say result in switch result case dot failure let error. We'll say we're going to print the error. I'm going to say error, right? Error dot error. Okay, here we go. And then we're going to say case dot success. Okay, let data, right? We'll say print. We're going to say data. And this should say some bytes. That's what this should say. Data X amount of bytes. All right. Now, what's going on here? Yeah. So yeah, this is optional, so we should probably like unwrap it, right? Again, this is for testing purposes. We don't want our data in here. Error. There is no response from the given URL. So if I say, let me see something. So we have this problem down here, and this says what? This says there's no response from the given URL. So I have this right here. I need to go copy this, do right here, did a search, and this is how you can track down your problems, right? And now this is in my my custom errors file, the extension, if it's no data. So basically, I didn't retrieve any data back, but yet this exact URL was taken from here and is retrieving data. So basically, something is blocking. What could be blocking it? People, you have to be familiar with Xcode in order to get this one, right? But it's a very simple one. Your info.p list, right? So in your info.p list, basically your info.p list was the thing that allows you to safely make API calls or do networking, right? So in order to, so basically if you look at this, this isn't HTTP, not HTTPS, right? It's not secure. So it blocks it since it's not secure. So I mean, for the sake of this, let's do a quick one. We're gonna go to our info.p list, go to your side, your left side, info.p list. We're gonna say add a row, and then we're going to look for app transport security settings. App transport, so on. Why is this app transport security settings? Okay, app transport security settings, right? And I'm going to add this bundle. It's not bundle. I was going to say allows arbitrary loads. Right. Okay, stop. Um, I think that's wrong. Let's see. Let's see, delete, remove, okay, right there. Application scene allows arbitrary loads. And allows arbitrary loads, right? So you need to get this pointing down, okay? And then press the plus button here. Allows arbitrary loads right there, and make this say yes. Yes, we allow arbitrary loads. And now let's see what our error gives us after this. No error. This is what we're looking for, 2,300 bytes. So now we know that our API call is returning something. Now we have to go and get this data and parse it. And that's next. On to the next.